are 10 years old, which is crazy to say out loud, and are commonplace in the Nintendo sphere, still being released and enjoyed today. But let's go back to a time where amiibo were a new and exciting idea, one where fans frothed at the mouth and feared for their wallets. To start at the beginning, Activision had a new project in the works and offered Nintendo the opportunity to have an exclusivity deal with their new idea. This series would come to be known as Skylanders, a spin-off of the Spyro the Dragon series. The Skylanders series would use small figures containing radio frequency identification technology. Radio frequency identification, or RFID, allowed for the figures to send and receive data with the games they were compatible with. The data could also be saved to the figures that pertained to that specific character, like their abilities or stats. Nintendo declined the exclusivity, but still, Activision went through with their idea through multi-platform distribution and quickly became a massive success, earning billions of dollars by the end of its run. Seeing Activision's snowballing success, Nintendo revealed Pokémon Rumble U, their first Wii U game to use the system's NFC capabilities. This game had Pokémon characters running around as little toys, beating up other toy Pokémon until they ran out of health and fainted. It's a very simple game, but very cute and colorful, especially with the little toys that could be collected. This was Nintendo dipping their toe into this little figurine business venture. Nintendo teased their amiibo line in 2014, a month before their reveal in June, saying they would be compatible with Wii U and 3DS systems and could be used in different games. This piqued some interest in some fans, and imaginations ran wild with possibilities. Nintendo announced the existence of amiibo during their E3 presentation, which took place on June 10, 2014, while showing off Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Regardless of the tease in May, this was still a surprise to many in the Nintendo community, considering products of Nintendo characters, especially of more niche franchises, were few and far between. But this makes sense, since Nintendo originated as a toy company, circling back to their roots while tying it together with their current video game business. And this was during the time Nintendo was struggling from poor Wii U sales. Amiibo coming to help the company pull in some much-needed cash. Cash fans were more than willing to part with. The announcement shook the Nintendo fanbase and people were vibrating with excitement, more so than what the figure could actually do. Sure, some people were looking forward to a more competent computer player that supposedly, hypothetically, learned how you played and the potential they had for future games, but most people were ecstatic that they could just get figures of their favorite Nintendo characters. Since Super Smash Bros. Was leading this figure endeavor, so many of Nintendo's franchises were represented and accounted for. Characters of the smallest Nintendo series, as long as they were represented in this entry of Nintendo's flagship fighter, would get an amiibo figure. Characters whose series had ended like Earthbound, or series that hadn't received a release in a couple handful of years like F-Zero, could look forward to being sculpted, painted, purchased, and delivered to their fans, somewhat filling a much-needed hole in their non-existent merchandise lineup. Fans' excitement for Super Smash Bros. Was now propelled even higher due to these little 4-inch figures. Not only would the first HD Super Smash Bros. Release only a handful of months from the 2014 E3 conference, fans would also have the opportunity to buy some of its characters in physical format. And on top of this, they released for only about $13, which some fans were baffled by the low price, considering Nintendo and their reputation for how much they value their IP and how strict they can be with them. Being under $20 was not something we were expecting, but we're so happy to see regardless. For better or for worse, these little amiibo wouldn't be released all at once. They released in waves. First wave would be released along the launch of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. The characters that would be part of the first wave would be Mario, Peach, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Link, Fox, Samus, Wii Fit Trainer, Villager, Pikachu, Kirby, and Marth. This first wave was crazy. It was a frenzy. Minutes after these amiibo were up for pre-order, they were sold. No one realized how fast they would sell or how popular they would become. Not the fans, and not Nintendo. So Nintendo made the obvious decision to make plenty of copies of amiibo for the popular characters like Mario, Luigi, and Pikachu. But the characters of lesser popularity, like Marth and Wii Fit Trainer, wouldn't be made in high volume. When amiibo hit store shelves, people were making mad dashes to aisles and secure their new toys. People would call store after store and hope they would get restocked, but it was unknown when they would, if at all. There were a bunch of YouTube videos back in the day of people becoming amiibo hunters who would go store to store trying to find their desired figures and record their findings. They'd have a plan of attack to tackle different stores in their areas, call up friends and relatives to keep a lookout of the amiibo they wanted, and share their failures and successes after trying for weeks, hoping to get their grail figure. There are countless videos of people going for amiibo during those first few weeks. They were vlogs, like little adventures in someone's life, and you'd want them to succeed after every video they'd post. But sadly, this happened not only because Nintendo wasn't prepared for the hype, but also because of scalping. Scalping was abundant. This happened especially with rare figures being bought up fast by those wanting to make a quick buck off of desperate people yearning for their little Nintendo figures. What didn't help the situation regarding supply restraints was when a supply truck in the UK filled with amiibo, notably containing an unreleased Splatoon amiibo, was stolen, losing precious future purchases that Nintendo tried to help remedy the scalping situation. Nintendo heard fan outcry for resupplies only for something like this to have happened. It was definitely salt in the wound. With the power of supply and demand, Marios, Luigis, and Pikachus sat on the shelves waiting to be bought, while Marths and Wii Fit trainers would be swept up in droves as fast as they were set in stores or online. And this would continue during the next couple of waves as well, especially when it came to store exclusives. Characters like Shulk were exclusive to GameStop, and people would scoop them up as soon as they went for pre-order online, ending minutes after they went up. Fans would wait outside in the hopes that they can get in early to obtain their own Minato boy. Some were lucky, others weren't. And again, the supply and demand reared its ugly head. Shulk was a really niche character back in 2014, so Nintendo never made many amiibo of him. Corrin's Player 2 variant, aka Female Corrin, was an Amazon exclusive and sold out very fast. After that one chance to get her, she was dumped onto the aftermarket, with her listings going well into the triple digits for about 5 years until she thankfully got re-released after Fire Emblem Engage came out. Mostly in the early waves, some amiibo didn't exactly come out how they were advertised. For example, the promo image of Link had him on a clear, clean rod as a support. The released version had the character on a thicker, unattractive yellow rod, taking away some of the appeal from the figure. Unfortunately, Marth was also different from the promo. In the promo image, he had relatively detailed facial features considering the size of the figure, but the release of the figure, considering these were done on a massive scale, forewent some of the detailing and didn't look too good. That's not to mention that there was some lack of quality control, or at least some issues that got through the cracks. These would be defective amiibo. These would be wild. They would include, but not be limited to, legless Peach, who is just existing without her legs, smiling without a care in the world. This amiibo went on eBay and sold for $25,000. Even one Peach had 3 arms. That's just one I learned while looking up amiibo defects. I had no clue that existed. Another would be my favorite, and now the iconic dual-arm cannon Samus, who rocked double the firepower. No wonder Ridley wasn't playable in this Smash Bros. Said amiibo would go on eBay and be sold for $2,500. This was the hype surrounding amiibo. Supply and demand issues on top of factory defects, naturally frenzies would ensue. And speaking of Samus amiibo, one individual tried their amiibo on a subway terminal gate, to which it activated. Very appropriate considering Samus uses her suit's capabilities to activate doors and switches within the Metroid series. Later on, Nintendo would come to say restocks would be available, but only after Wave 2 was out, when circumstances regarding stock issues hadn't changed. This ended up with a rinse and repeat process with Wave 2, and Wave 3, and Wave 4. It wasn't until about the 5th wave when Nintendo finally started producing plenty of products and keeping online windows open longer than they had previously. Getting their act together and working better with retailers, they had solved their restocking issues. In 2015, Nintendo wanted to tap in their 3DS install base, those who owned copies of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, with their Amiibo initiative, but 3DS systems didn't have NFC readers. They developed the Nintendo 3DS NFC Reader and Writer, which costs a fair bit, falling around the $20 price point. It was a cute white little circle reminiscent of a hockey puck that would need to be lined up with the 3DS. Simply drop the Amiibo of choice onto the circle and watch it do its magic. Data would be read and sent to the 3DS and into the game. An upgraded model to the 3DS systems named the New 3DS released in Japan in 2014 and everywhere else in 2015. This new 3DS included the NFC reader, which was now located in the bottom screen. Going from the hockey puck shaped reader to being built into the bottom screen was impressive, at least to me. Having the NFC reader be conveniently tucked away under the hood really helped make the 3DS a more portable device without needing to carry around an accessory to use an Amiibo with. On April 1st, 2015, Nintendo revealed Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, an Animal Crossing spin-off that introduced Amiibo cards. These were cards with Animal Crossing characters printed on them with NFC capability to use with the 3DS to add items and decorations to the homes in Happy Home Designer. They released a game called Yoshi's Woolly World, where it was a spiritual successor to the Yoshi's Island series on Super Nintendo, and with it, they made Amiibo. But these were pretty special. Nintendo got creative and made these little yarn Amiibo plushies to help advertise Yoshi's Woolly World, which used a yarn aesthetic for the game's art style. In a developer interview regarding the game, there was a stack of yarn Yoshi behind the woman being interviewed. Someone left a comment that I thought was funny and would always stick with me. It said something along the lines of, "That's it. That woman has the entire stock." Of course, playing on the idea of Nintendo's supply issues. There have been a couple of other special Amiibo with features unlike any others, like notably the Metroid Amiibo from the Samus Returns set, where it is soft and squishy like the Metroid creatures in the games, and the Boo Amiibo from the Super Mario set, where it glows in the dark. From the point of its introduction and throughout the years, Nintendo have continued to release amiibo, even releasing amiibo for DLC characters from Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, including third-party characters. A few years after the game's launch, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was released, allowing for the series' newcomers to obtain amiibo of their own, and like its predecessor, it would receive DLC. And again, those characters would get amiibo, no matter how long it took. Some characters took months, some a year. Final DLC character to be brought to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Sora, was released in October 2021, and the amiibo wouldn't be released until over 2 years later in February 2024. With the final Smash Bros. Amiibo released this year, the 10th anniversary of amiibo, it's a nice bookend, a nice form of closure to the Super Smash Bros. Amiibo having started in 2014. Some amiibo of non-Smash Bros. Characters from third parties have been sold throughout the years, like Dark Souls and Monster Hunter, the latter of which has had a lot of amiibo. We've still gotten Splatoon and Zelda amiibo as of last year, Nintendo's still supporting their big releases, but after the Sora amiibo there was a 7-month gap between the next set of amiibo, being the Splatoon 3 Side Order amiibo, one of the longest periods without an amiibo release. Could this be a sign of slowing down to a crawl and eventual halt in amiibo production? Especially with the next Nintendo system looming, could Nintendo phase out their little collectibles? At launch, Nintendo had amiibo be playable CPU fighters in Super Smash Bros., but for the most part, they don't serve much in-game purpose aside from some extra items and goodies. Despite this noticeable gap, there was a point where about 9 months went by without amiibo being released. This 9-month gap began with a couple of Smash Ultimate's Echo Fighters and ended with its first Fighter Pass DLC characters, potentially caused by licensing and contracts to make sure everything was up to code with the characters' companies. But even then, amiibo aren't what they used to be in terms of content contained within or their hype. Might get some people excited about a couple of them, but that could not match the electricity in the air from the seemingly countless fans buzzing with excitement at the prospect of owning the first few waves of figures. But that could have very well been the issue, one that was echoed after the Super Smash Bros. Amiibo release. Nintendo used their golden goose right away and got all their big hitters and beloved niche franchises out to consumers right away. After that, it really felt like more of the same, just with a different pose or a coat of paint. Of course, new characters got printed and purchased, but that initial hype never truly returned. Still, despite that, an amiibo that had been available for purchase post Smash Wii U and 3DS has become someone's favorite and does not discount the joy they feel upon receiving it. Even though amiibo may not be the forefront of Nintendo's business plan as it used to be, in part to the success of their Switch system, it was still an integral part of Nintendo's history through some of their roughest years, and gave us Nintendo fans unforgettable memories and some little toys to help remember them by. Happy 10th anniversary, amiibo.